People ask me that all the time, like the sort of jumping in full steam ahead versus dip your toes. Before you just like, I'm going to quit everything and just do this, take 10% of your time, take a chunk of your time and really diligently pursue a side project before you burn the bridges and go all in, right?
Joel Iverson is the CEO of Monday Night Brewing, a company that started as friends brewing beer in a garage and grew into a $67 million business with 6 locations across the Southeast.
We have a huge loneliness problem. I mean, young person, sort of a 25-year-old today, spends 45% more time completely alone than 10 years ago. And so if anything, I'm like, we want to be the most welcoming, inclusive, hey, you want a beer? Awesome. And that's the foundation of what started us. But if you're not a beer person, be there with your beer person with your NA beer or your mocktail. But we need places where people are welcome and comfortable and come together.
Walk me through what those early years were. What was the oh no, this is actually a business?
The early years, dude, it was just, man, fire after fire after. It was, I ended up, we started.
Joel, firstly, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate you taking the time to be present here and a part of the conversation. I want to start off with just a little bit of background for people who might not know really who you are. I know there's been articles written about you. There's been lots of conversations, and you're really kind of an up and coming. I don't want to say up and coming, but a fresh face in kind of the leadership position for a company. But for a bit of background, so you graduated from UVA with an economics degree. You spent 5 years helping a wellness brand scale from, I want to say 20 to 300 plus employees. You had over $100 million flowing through your direct marketing consulting work. You were, literally the guy companies paid serious money to figure out how to run a business efficiently. And all of that going on, then you'd go home every Monday night, brew some beer with your friends, with your co-founder in their garage, with a group of people you knew through church. What point, or really at what point did you look across the garage and think, wait, we should actually do this. We should take this seriously. And what did the people in your professional world say when you told them you were leaving the consulting side to open up a brewery?
That's a great question. Most people thought I was a little crazy.
I bet.
They're like, yeah, do you realize, it is to make the jump from sort of that sort of corporate world and stability and consulting and building big national and even sort of global campaigns. Be like, you know what, we want to build something that's hyper local in our neighborhood and make craft beer and have a tap room. It was a pretty big shift. I will say, I think most people thought, they're like, all right, so you're going to basically, the early stages, it was literally I didn't get a paycheck for about a year as we kind of got off the ground. And it was, one of those where you're like, all right, really taking a leap of faith. Had a wife who was very excited though. She's like, I will work and support us. And as long as you're not jumping on a plane every Monday morning, I'm good. now there's a whole other season of, challenges of, showing up at the brewery at 2 a.m. because, a piece of equipment broke down and et cetera. But I will say it's been both more rewarding than I ever imagined, just that level of building a local business and being connected to your community, but also way more challenging than I ever imagined.
Oh, I bet. I would say that's very much the entrepreneurial mindset of, you've already established a history of success and really success being the thing. You've got that with your consulting work. You've had, years and years of that experience to then go, I'm done with this. Let's shift gears. I feel like that's a really consistent mindset shift that happens for a lot of entrepreneurs today, where they start somewhere, it goes well, and they're like, okay, cool. What's the next thing?
Yeah.
Do you think that's kind of the same mindset that you had at the time?
Yeah, I think so. And just I got so many chances in that consulting world to work with different entrepreneurs. Like one of the founders of Crocs, the shoes. Like he had sort of a product he launched after he left Crocs, and we helped him sort of build that as a direct to consumer business. We had just a lot of different kind of creative founders, entrepreneurs, and there's a little bit of you know what, I want to build something for myself and still, instead of helping someone else go build their thing, use some of
Mm-hmm.
those skills from years of that, just dealing with brands that are scaling, and do it myself. Now, I will say though, but do it on, I felt very excited about doing it on a more sort of local slash regional level, just from the human side of sometimes that world is so transactional, like, right, the direct to consumer retail, it's all about the numbers and the metrics and did I scale the campaign quickly. E-commerce, right, it's e-commerce is literally you're boiling everyone down to their clicks and conversion rates.
Yep.
So totally different world in craft beer, where you're like, all right, well, this is not sure all the skills translated.
Yeah. Well, but it's still, I think it's really interesting. Like, actually, before we dive into that, I do want to ask, like, when was the point that you said, this is something that I want to do? Because I think there's a lot of people who listen to podcasts like this who are in that kind of exploratory phase of,
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I want to like commit to taking on the challenge. Because we've had several people on who have done kind of a similar thing of big risk. And there's a lot of people out there who fail at it.
Yeah.
And you're a great case of the success of taking the experience, especially that you had, and using it to your advantage. When was I want to do this. This is, screw everything else.
Yeah.
This is when was that moment?
Yeah, I think we had been doing the home brewing for a little while, and then we would do these occasional uh these occasional sort of like blind tests of our beers versus really delicious, well-known beers in the marketplace. Because it's easy to like to drink your own Kool-Aid. You're like, oh, my beer is amazing.
Oh yeah.
And then we do these sort of blind tests and be like, okay. And we had gotten to the point where like 2 or 3 of our beers were like, okay, like people are who have no idea are blind tasting these and saying these are more delicious beers than these big established brands, craft brands are doing. And that was sort of a point of like, okay, great, we got the product. I will say, I think we did people ask me that all the time, like the sort of jumping in full steam ahead versus dip your toes. There's a friend of mine. He actually interviewed me for his book. It's called The 10% Entrepreneur, and he's actually the guy. When he was at Harvard, he coined the phrase FOMO, like, which everyone knows now. He was writing for the Harvard paper, and he was the first person to come up with the idea of FOMO, like this fear of missing out. But he wrote a book about the idea, but I think it was really something we embodied, which is, you're going to, before you just like, I'm going to quit everything and just do this, take 10% of your time, 10%, like take a chunk of your time and really diligently like pursue a side project before you burn the bridges and go all in, right?
Yeah.
Because there are just as many stories of entrepreneurs that I got this idea, 2 months later, they quit their job. And you're like, ooh, maybe you shouldn't quit your job so quickly. So I think for us, the process was very much okay, great. We homebrewed for 5 years in the garage, and kind of while we were doing that, it was business planning and it was market research and it was understanding the distribution networks and how are we going to do this. So we probably overplanned in a way. We could have probably opened sooner than that, but it did help us start with bang. So
well, and I would say there is no over planning. I don't think you can ever like over prepare really, especially when like that risk. That the scale of that risk can be so much. I mean, you described it perfectly, kind of the nightmare I think that a lot of people have about being an entrepreneur of, I quit my job. I'm dedicating to crocheting American Girl doll dresses. And then it's like, okay, maybe I shouldn't have done that right away.
Yeah.
I also want to ask because my brother he brews meat at home,
Mm.
at least once a year, and it's a hobby of his. What what did this kind of like before you even started like as a business? What was that kind of process look like of starting off as I'm guessing kind of as a hobby, fun thing to do with the guys, into reaching that point of ooh, guys, we're actually, did you ever do the competition scene? I know there's like you can submit like samples to breweries and such, and like they'll taste test it and rate it. Like that's what I imagine kind of at the at the later end that you're like, okay, we could do something with this. What did that really early stage look like?
Yeah, it was, we did a few of those. The homebrew competitions are a little bit more, they're semi-real competitions, right?
It's have a drink with a bunch of people. Like,
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But we did after we opened up. I think we're the most award-winning brewery in the Southeast in terms of like actual like World Beer Cup and Great American Beer Fest medals. So it was validating. We're like, oh, as soon as we opened up, like we started winning big awards for our beers, and we're like, whoa, these were actually pretty good. But I would say that yeah, it is. I mean, it's a tough one, right? That hobby versus just because it's a hobby and you're good at it on a hobby side, can it translate to a business side? And one of the things that me and Jonathan and Jeff, I think we realized pretty early on is we're like, okay, we actually have pretty complementary skills. Jeff is from kind of private equity world, understands, really seeing high level businesses and
mhm.
finance side and great at that. Jonathan came from sort of marketing consulting, worked on a lot of brands, sort of high level marketing strategy. And I was direct to consumer stuff, but more on like the operations of running a direct to consumer business. So like we weren't a creative agency. We would sort of contract with creative agencies, but we were focused on like, all right, how do you scale this thing with the creative and have web vendors, call centers, and all the things. So we realized, hey, we've got a pretty good complementary skill sets to actually run a business, and I think that was um, we realized that probably earlier on, and then we're like, all right, well then we need to one figure out the product, make sure we're making really good product, and there was that aha moment probably 2 years in. We're like, okay, we're making killer product, and then two, it was let's what's a business plan to actually do this. And that's where I mean, it was crazy. Like we went around to like each of the other local at the time there were really only two other breweries in Atlanta, and the owners would like sit down and kind of tell you everything. They're like, here's the good, the bad, the ugly. A very collaborative industry, which is cool.
I think that's a sign of, I would say, really healthy industry of being able and willing to kind of just share that kind of information. It also sounds like in the way that you describe it that the group of people that you had kind of already had that C-suite level of experience of really kind of that executive mindset. I mean, you're described kind of as like the ops brain from the day one. I mean, you built the pilot brewing system on your own. So I think that's a great foundation to have. And I think that's like, again, it's part of that leveraging the people, the resources you have at hand. Um, Walk me through, and for the viewers as well, what running the actual operations of a brewery looks like in those early years versus
Yeah.
today. Because we're talking, yeah, again, garage of friends, getting together every Monday to now a $67 million plus business over the course of, I think like a little over 20 years now. That's a business shift and growth that some corporations can only dream of in a sense of scale and percentage adjustment in such a short time.
Mhm.
Walk me through what those early years were, and like what was the like, oh no, this is actually a business.
Yeah.
How do you approach that?
Yeah. I mean, the early years, dude, it was, man, fire after fire after it was, I mean, I ended up, we started kind of built out the facility, and it was basically four people here in this 20,000 square foot building. We're like, what the hell are we doing? Like, this is like, we had, bought all this equipment.
Just standing in that empty space echoing.
Yeah. I mean, we'd gotten like a SBA loan was sort of our main source of capital. So SBA loan, you're like signing away like your house and your children to,
Yeah.
that this business better work.
Your soul at a certain level. Like,
So, and so I would say there was a shift of like, all right, we're just jumping in, and it was just chaos. I mean, again, the times when it's like, hey, something is broken and you're back at the brewery at 2 a.m. so that, trying to fix it because the next morning, you got to start production again, and you're trying to keep up with your distributor orders, and you're trying to, and I think that it was actually, I would say we had that first season of kind of entrepreneurial chaos. And then my business partner, Jeff, he was sort of still at his private equity job. And then he kind of jumped over, I guess it was about 4 or 5 years into the business. And he kind of jumped over, and he actually, I think, helped us in that transition from being like small business to real business. Just because he had so much experience with like different companies operating in that vein. The things that building the budgets and, the cadences of all the meetings and reviews with people, and the things that I think me and my other business partner, Jonathan, were like, that's like corporate BS. We don't want to do that stuff. And he helped us institute a lot of that. And it really, that kind of created, I think, some good scaffolding for the business to, really, we sort of developed our sort of core values as a business. We really spent a lot of time on, I think we do really good with sort of the HR and the people side. And we do a lot more than most craft breweries in terms of, and even small businesses in terms of just creating like a great work environment and letting people thrive and grow. And then I think that's allowed me in this like next phase of our company we've got such a great team of sort of the people that are just beating the drum of the culture and the company. And then I would say that the new phase now for us, I was sort of the jack of all trades, the guy that would go in and push these big new projects for the company. And I love to jump from like, okay, I'm going to do this and then this, and then I'm going to build this new facility, and then we're going to do this. And this new phase has been a bit of an adjustment because yes, we still have some kind of new, I would say sort of business transformation things going on. Like craft beer is hard. We have to diversify away from just craft beer, and there's big things like that, but we've got a much better sort of day-to-day just operating team that cares for the culture. They take care of the culture. And then my job is now more, okay, how do I care for them? How do I support them? How do I, step back and look at the big picture? I still occasionally get roped into, this thing is broken. How can we fix it, Joel? And I'm like, I remember 10 years ago we did this, and like it worked.
I love that. Personally, because I grew up working for a tiny coffee shop right out of high school into when I was going to community college, and I do remember those kinds of experiences of a small business of getting up, something's wrong. It's you who's fixing it. I mean, if there's an issue, no matter what the time is, the business owner and the operator has to be there to make sure that it's going to function. And so and that's I think any small business owner is going to recognize that, especially when there's from an operations perspective, like a brick and mortar location to work from, especially as you scale up that production, a garage is only going to get you so much. And to really push that, you have to continue that growth, continue that expansion. You mentioned a little bit about like kind of you guys weren't a creative. I don't want to say you're not a creative team, but like you didn't have like a creative suite. It was a lot of like, it sounds like from the way you describe your team, like a lot of numbers guys who could look at the statistics, the numbers, and kind of do that kind of research. But I want to talk a little bit about that kind of creative aspect, because Monday Night has a very clear identity. There's that necktie logo. Weekends are overrated. The idea that that community happens on weeknights, not just weekends.
Hmm.
And I know that, like any business, there's been shifts, there's been change. I saw a post about, like, previously there was like a little monk logo
Yeah, yeah.
with I think like a Stein or something. And so as someone, for you, as someone who came from that operations, that economics, really, I would say that numbers background, how intentional was that brand building? And how do you design a retail environment where people actually want to be regulars, not just like the one-time kind of performative visitors?
Yeah, that is it's interesting. I had a guy from the city of Atlanta here yesterday, and he was here for just he's you have a million inspections when you make alcohol, right? He's here for
Oh yeah.
inspection.
Oh yeah.
And he's sitting down and he's like, Joel, I got to tell you, he's like, 3 years ago, there were 12 breweries like in my little district right here. And eight over the last 3 years, eight of them have closed. And there's four left out of the 12 that were here 3 years ago. And he said, I took my boss and I walked her around your facility, and we just took over kind of a new building next to us and built out like a new tap room there. And he's like, I just got to say, you guys, while so many breweries just kept doing the same thing and they didn't evolve to consumers, you guys have pivoted and adapted, and it's worked. And he took his boss around here because he wanted to show her, like, this is what a successful brewery looks like. And it's crazy. I mean, we went from literally a warehouse with 8 taps of beer, and we had to say, okay, uh, we're open at 8 a.m. We have coffee service, we have wood fired pizza, we have beer and cocktails, and it's just it's a total shift from sort of what a craft brewery was. And when we started in this, I mean, that original logo was well, first it was the monk, but then when we launched, it was kind of the guy in the necktie and loosening the necktie, and craft beer was kind of who we were. We were these late 20-something-year-olds who were getting off of our corporate day jobs and loosening the tie and having a beer. Well, now no one even wears a necktie anymore, right? Like, people are like, necktie, what? And so there's and I would even say our demographic has shifted to, I mean, even the sort of the female demographic that we've sort of has come into craft beer. And I mean, one of our flagship beers is a berry lemon sour that probably 80% of the drinkers are female. Like, they love it. And it's I mean, I would say some of it, people always ask me, they're like, did you guys have some master plan? Like, and you're like, no, you didn't have a master plan, but you just did the next right step each time. You listen to your consumers. And that doesn't mean your consumers, you can listen too much to consumers. You have to have your identity and your way, but you have to look at what do people want, what do consumers want. Like, ultimately, if you don't have consumers, you don't have a business, right? And so if you're the craft brewery that's like, I'm gonna brew these esoteric saisons that 2% of the population likes to drink, you're just not going to have a business. Or it's really hard to have a business. And then I would say I think we've got great people internally that sort of balance that creativity. Our brewmaster, Peter, he is, the guy is brilliant. He's like a genius, kind of chemistry background. It's great, the tension of both creative energy with like grounding in business and reality. And we've managed, because of our multifaceted team, to, I think, hit both of those simultaneously, which is hard. It's, I think, really hard. Either you become all like just business and numbers and you lose that heart and soul, or you're this total creative who has no concept of cost of goods to actually drive a product and be successful.
Yeah. Well, and I like that idea of, you have to maintain like your business identity, that kind of that brand identity, but you do also have to listen to your consumers. Like, those are two sides of the same coin. Like, in my head, I kind of imagine it where, in movie making, you have like your core character idea, You have your main character. Like this is who, I think of like Aragorn from Lord of the Rings.
Mm-hmm.
He's not like proud and majestic, but a lot of people might interpret like, oh, he's going to be a king, so like he should be regal and such. And it's like, no, that's not like. Yes, he's royalty, but he's not. That's not the idea that we're trying to tell here. And it sounds kind of like the same thing of you could listen to your people and you could let the customer completely drive the business,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and that might work for a bit, but you're going to run into some issues in the future because you're not going to know who you really are. And as a kind of a follow-up with that, you mentioned like bringing in coffee service, getting like wood-fired pizza. I think a lot of businesses, a lot of small business owners kind of have that difficult balance, have to find that balance point of, do I add complexity? Do
Mm-hmm.
I keep to my core? Because that can be like, that could be a terrifying decision. I mean, it can make or break a business. Can you walk everyone through that decision? Why add food? And did it change? And I'm guessing it probably did, but like, did it change who's walking through the door?
It was, I think for the longest time, we're like, oh, we just want to brew beer. We just want to brew beer. And like, and I think that it was finally like really talking to and seeing, other breweries in other states. There's some really cool ones, like actually, a great brewery down in Texas, Jester King. And they, watching them do like kind of do not just like it's so easy for you to be like, oh, I'm just going to go check some boxes, right? I'm gonna do food. Great. I'm gonna get a microwave and some hot pockets, and boom, I got food, right?
Yep.
And I think so. For us, the journey was like, okay, anything we do, you can't. Yeah, I mean, you can't phone it in. It has to be with the same, you know, attention and intention that we put into every one of our beers. And I mean the pizza is kind of a crazy story. Again, we didn't have some master plan of like making wood fired pizza. I've made it at home for the longest time, and then I made like a sourdough starter, and we have this room where we do wild fermentations at the brewery. So I made a sourdough starter in our wild fermentation room. And I started making these wood-fired pizzas. And during COVID, every tap rooms were all shut down. The only people still working was our production team. And every Friday, I'd tote my like wood-fired portable oven over here to the brewery, and I'd make wood-fired pizzas for the whole production team. Like just as sort of a way, like, hey, eat it outside on the patio. Those guys were all like maintaining distances back in the, from
Oh
each
yeah.
other. And it was like this. It kind of became this like Friday rhythm during COVID of Joel would show up and, make pizzas. These guys are like busting it in the midst of COVID, like keeping production going. And then, a few months later, another friend was like, Joel, these pizzas are so freaking good. Like, you need to make these at the brewery. And he was like, oh, by the way, there's a, Italian wood-fired pizza place that shut down like 2 months into COVID. And they've got these two beautiful Italian wood-fired ovens. And I can get you a deal on those, like from the landlord that they left behind. And then we bought these two Italian wood-fired ovens, and we started making wood-fired sourdough pizzas in the brewery. And it was, again, sort of this, like, we didn't have a master plan, but we're like, you know what? Like, and it really, I think what we realized too is, I think we said, what are the things we can do to be a more inclusive craft brewery, right? Like, and food is one of them. Like food and like we have a non-alcoholic beer we have now. We have, mocktails and cocktails and things that say, yes, beer is still the core of who we are and where we were founded, but I want everybody. I want everybody to walk into our brewery and feel welcome and feel the hospitality and find products that are delicious and intentional. Even if you're not one of the craft beer dorks who's like, give me the 9% double IPA.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And I love kind of that you shifted to something that I think can be really difficult for some businesses, but you took the opportunities that presented themselves of shifting to everyone is welcome. I mean, why would you ever want to really close yourself off from more customers? So And I mean, the idea of you have this fermentation room where everything's kind of, you know, bubbly and all the chemicals are going on and very alchemy
Yeah.
style. And out of that spawns, wood-fired pizza from a sourdough starter. I mean, that's really putting the gastro into like gastropub.
Yeah.
That's such a great, and I mean, I feel like that's the kind of thing that everyone kind of associates with beer. Like if you're going to get beer, might as well get a pizza to go with it. I mean, carb on carb, why not?
Yeah. And it's a hard balance, right? Of like you want to offer more things, but also you don't want to turn into the freaking cheesecake factory where you're Italian, Mexican, Asian food. We do all of it so well. Like figure out a few things you can do really well, that most people are going to enjoy, that are welcoming and inclusive, and do them really well.
Yeah. I mean, that is a consistent theme that we have here on this podcast is if you're going to do something, do it well, do it great. Make that like, it's okay to have more things with it, but if you're going to include something, you probably want it to be complimentary. So, doing pizza is a perfect combination. Having a spot where you can stop by and get a cup of coffee in the morning, come by in the morning, go to work, come by after work and get a drink. Like you're creating a great environment that again, boosts that inclusivity that says to anyone, doesn't matter who you are, you don't have to like alcohol. You could be, you could be sober.
Yeah, exactly.
And there we have non-alcoholic beers. We have mocktails that you can enjoy. That's something that I'm not a huge drinker like I was in college, but I definitely have found an appreciation more for mocktails where like, oh man, I used to really enjoy a gin and tonic, but I don't need the alcohol content kicking in. So to have more of those options brings more people in. It's something that I hate when I see on social media of a business offering mocktails or a business that is solely mocktails. And on the comments everywhere will be like, this is so stupid. Like, why would I get this if it doesn't have alcohol? It's like, because it's not for you. If it doesn't have alcohol and that's your thing, don't get it. There's all these other options out there and it just opens the door for more people to have the experience that you're trying to provide for them. And I love that you're pursuing that.
Yeah, and it really, like, we are the president of the Brewers Association, which is kind of the big craft brewers group. I was talking to him recently about this idea of, we have a huge like loneliness problem. I mean, like basically right now,
Especially after COVID.
oh yeah, the stat he shared is that a young person, sort of a 25-year-old today, spends 45% more time completely alone than 10 years ago. And so if anything, I'm like, hey, we want to be the most welcoming, inclusive, like, hey, you want a beer, awesome. And that's the foundation of what started us. But if you're not a beer person, like, be there with your beer person with your NA beer or your mocktail or whatever.
Or just a pizza.
Yeah, we need places where people are welcome and comfortable and come together. And I mean, the event side of the stuff we do these like Lego build nights where people are just
Fun.
building Lego sets or puzzle nights or things that again are designed to to get people to interact with other people and to build community and relationships, because we need more of that.
Absolutely. That's fantastic. Like me and my friends, we love a little craft night, like just to get together.
Yeah.
And I paint miniatures in my free time for Dungeons and Dragons for my friends. Like it's to kind of open that door. And you're absolutely right. Like, COVID was hugely destructive for the social aspect for a lot of people. And a lot of people found the solution was to get online, which was absolutely a Band-Aid solution. But another big problem of COVID was the destruction of third places or third spaces.
Yes.
Where, as especially young adults in your 20s and 30s, there's not a lot of options to either to not be at home and not be at work.
Yeah.
You're really kind of SOL on that. And so to have a space that is constantly, you've built a brewery. and you've built, kind of this, a tap house. Like you have this idea of a place that people can go, and you've just expanded it more into what is really becoming a community center.
Mhm.
And to replicate that, not just at one location, but at, what is it, 6 now locations, like across the US?
Yep. Yeah, pretty much southeast, but yeah, 4 states and yeah, 6 locations.
That is that's a huge value proposition beyond just just beyond the alcohol concept of, this is a place that you can go, you can meet people, you can connect, you can feel close to other people that, a lot of young adults, especially men, but this, not just men and women and everywhere in between, have not had access to, especially in the last couple of years. Especially, I feel so bad for the people who had to graduate like college in COVID,
Yes.
and have had such a struggle of like pursuing like a dream like this of, well, how am I supposed to do this when like the job market's so brutal? And I think you're a great sign of like, there are times that, yes, like the job market's always going to be bad. Like this is my little inspirational spiel that I have for people, but like the job market's always bad. Um, it sucks to work, but like if you do, again, it's that idea of like, if you do something you love, if your job is something you love, you'll never have to work in a day life, which is BS. You absolutely are going to have to work.
Yeah.
You would know 2 a.m. fixing some sort of machine. You're gonna work, but the satisfaction from it is going to be worth more than any dollar that you make at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess one thing that to loop back kind of into that COVID aspect, I had mentioned earlier that like it's a sign, you have an industry that like has a sign of like really good health emotionally, like that support from other leaders in companies who are willing to talk about what's going on in the market.
Mm.
But craft beer as a market as a whole has been in kind of a rough place.
Yeah.
Volume sales down, 4 to 5% for 2 years running. Closures outpacing opening. Like you mentioned that.
Mhm.
I think it was like an inspector who was like, the out of 12, there's only 4 left.
Yeah.
You, as I mentioned, are running 6 locations now through a category that's structurally contracting. What does a business owner actually do when it's not just a bad quarter, but a market shift? How do you adjust to that? And I think more importantly, how do you recognize it early
Yeah.
to be able to make that adjustment?
That's a great question. It's one that we have, yeah, it's really been really the last couple of years. I think we went from this, you know, we were growing 25% a year with volume at distribution. It was like, it was sort of felt like, man, all we just need to do is just make more beer and it's going to be easy. And then combination of both competition and then, like you said, the contraction in craft beer that sort of has happened the last few years, especially. Um, I think I think for us, we one of our sort of our former COO, she used to joke that if you're going to work at Monday Night Brewing, change is gravity. We are in this ever, like, we tell our employees, look, here's a job description. This might totally change in 3 to 6 months, and it's both trying to stay. Again, it's the balance of, you have to stay true to who we are and your purpose and your direction where you're going. But there are so many pivots that we've had to make along the way. Now, maybe not as like drastic as Allbirds, the shoe company that's now an AI company, right?
Yeah.
You're like, what? Wait, you're an AI company now?
It's out of the left field, but okay.
Yeah. But pivots in, how we're going about stuff, how we're approaching the market, how we're, targeting new consumers, how we're, again, on the taproom side, offering more things. And I think it is, I would say it's been a challenge to be like, okay, we're going to finding that right pace on the pivot. I will say I don't think I've regretted a single one of our pivots. Like every time we've we've shifted and, added more. Yes, it's complexity and it's hard, but then you take something that's really hard to get going, and then once it gets going, you build the rhythms and the process. And food, when we started, food was it was a mess. It was a cluster. It was like, what the hell are we doing? And then now it's like these guys, we got a great team, and it's just like clockwork. They do it and they execute, and the pizzas are amazing, and the prep, it just all happens. And you can't shy away from the work that change is going to take. The biggest honestly, the biggest thing, I have no problem with changing. It's usually the biggest thing is figuring out how to bring your team along with you, and how to help them understand it, and how to that's been one of my personal goals is, when we're going about changes and new things, bringing people into the conversation and say, hey guys, not just we're going to do this new thing, but here's the why. Here's what's happening out in the marketplace with craft beer. Here's what's and we're doing this thing because we have to. We're in an industry that's incredibly hard, and we're going to keep pushing forward, and we're going to do the right thing for the company and the right thing for our guests. And it's going to involve change, but change is good, as Thoreau once said.
Well, yeah, change is good, and I like that comment of change is gravity.
Mm-hmm.
Change is constant. It's good, and it's going to happen. And it is better to adjust with it. Turn the pitch of your sails, so it's not just going to blow you overboard, but also controlling it so you don't get too much speed and are taken off the controls. I think that's at the end of the day, kind of the moral is that balance of, and to your point, you're not going to know. You're like, to the business owner who is trying to decide, trying to prepare for whatever their adjustment is going to be, you're not going to know if it's going to work. You're not going to be 100%, and that's okay. What's important, it's that failure mindset of it. I only really fail when I stop trying.
Yeah.
So continuing to adapt, continuing to look back on it. Hindsight's 20/20, but it's only really effective if you're using that and learning from it. Again, really appreciate you being here, sharing some of your insights. Now the CEO of Monday Night Brewing. Where can people find you? What are the points of contact, social media? Where can people get in touch with you if they want to get to know more?
MondayNightBrewing.com is kind of our website central place for a lot of stuff. We've at Monday Night on Instagram. We're trying to get a little better about putting out some LinkedIn content, because we actually do have a ton to say. We've just not done a great job of putting it out there and sharing more. And then I remember reading about Tim Cook and how he would read customer emails directly to them. So you can also email me, Joel at mondaynightbrewing.com. Pretty good chance I'll respond, and I love, and then if you're ever in any of our markets, so Atlanta, Nashville, Birmingham, or Charlotte, go stop by one of our locations. Hopefully you'll get some unbelievable hospitality and some delicious beer and get a sense of who we are as a company.
Love it. Again, Joel, thank you so much. And thank you to the audience for listening in. Please check out Joel, reach out. You have a direct email now for him. That's a huge thing that you're not going to get from just about any other CEO. So thank you so much for listening. We'll see you on the next episode. Have a great week. Have a great weekend, and take care.
Thanks, Keenan.
Beyond the Register is sponsored by Genius, the modern point-of-sale system from Global Payments designed for retailers. Genius helps you reach your most important goals, whether that's simplifying your operations, tracking inventory, managing customer insights, or taking payments wherever your business takes you. To find out more, visit globalpayments.com/genius.